The ultimatum and the laughter commander Elena Vasquez stood at the observation deck of Terra Station, watching the gentle dance of commercial vessels moving between Earth and its 37 colonial worlds. The sight never failed to bring her peace. Massive cargo haulers drifted like whales through the void, their hulls gleaming with the soft blue glow of fusion drives. Passenger liners carried families and tourists between worlds that had become home to billions of humans. Everything moved with the calm precision of a civilization that had not known war for exactly 1,000 years. Elena was 45 years old and had spent her entire career in what was essentially a ceremonial position. As head of Earth's Orbital Defense Command, she managed traffic control, coordinated emergency rescues, and organized the annual Unity Day celebrations. Her grandfather had held the same position, and his grandfather before him. For 40 generations, the Vasquez family had overseen the defense of Earth, but there had been nothing to defend against. War was something from the history books, as ancient and irrelevant as stone tools or sailing ships. The last great conflict had ended in the year 2087, when humanity finally achieved what philosophers and dreamers had sought for millennia. True peace, not just the absence of war, but the presence of justice, prosperity, and understanding. Earth had healed from centuries of conflict. The oceans ran clean, the air smelled of flowers instead of smoke, and children played in parks built on former battlefields. Humanity had spread to the stars not as conquerors, but as gardeners, carefully nurturing new worlds and building societies that worked in harmony with nature. Dr. Marcus Chun was examining soil samples from the newest human colony when his communication array detected something that changed everything. Marcus specialized in xenobiology, searching for signs of life on distant worlds. His laboratory in New Geneva was filled with peaceful equipment designed to detect and study microscopic organisms. He had spent 20 years hoping to find proof that life existed elsewhere in the universe, imagining the day when humans would make peaceful contact with alien civilizations. A message that appeared on his screens was nothing like what he had dreamed of. The transmission was powerful, broadcast on multiple frequencies simultaneously, clearly intended to reach every human world at once. The language was harsh and mechanical, translated by computers that had learned human speech patterns from intercepted communications. The words made Marcus's hands shake as he read them. Inferior humans. Your expansion across the galaxy ends now. The Krillian Empire claims dominion over all worlds within this sector. Submit immediately or face complete extinction. You have 24 Earth rotations to surrender your colonies and return to your birth world. Resistance will result in the elimination of your entire species. This is your only warning. Marcus read the message 3 times before its meaning fully penetrated his peaceful mind. Someone was threatening humanity. Someone was demanding surrender. Someone was talking about extinction. The concepts felt foreign and wrong, like hearing words in a language that used familiar sounds but meant something completely alien. Marcus had studied the possibility of hostile alien contact, but only as an intellectual exercise. The reality of it felt like discovering that monsters from childhood nightmares had suddenly become real. The transmission spread across human space within minutes. Communication networks that normally carried news about scientific discoveries, artistic achievements, and cultural celebrations now carried something that humans had not heard for 1,000 years. A declaration of war. On colony worlds from Proxima Centauri to Kepler 442b, humans gathered around holographic displays to read the alien ultimatum. Their reactions varied from world to world, but most people seemed more puzzled than frightened. President Alexandra Reeves was attending a poetry festival on Mars when the message reached her. Alexandra had been elected on a platform of expanding cultural exchange programs and improving environmental restoration projects. She had never expected to deal with anything more serious than trade disputes or resource allocation disagreements. The idea of alien invasion seemed like something from ancient entertainment programs, not a real crisis requiring presidential attention. But as Alexandra read the Krillian ultimatum, something unexpected happened. Instead of fear or panic, she felt a strange bubbling sensation in her chest. The sensation grew stronger as she reread the message, and she realized with surprise that she was trying not to laugh. The aliens sounded like bullies in a school playground, making threats they clearly did not understand. Did these Krillians really think they could intimidate humanity? Did they have any idea what kind of species they were threatening? The laughter started small, with isolated chuckles from individuals who found the alien demands absurd. But it spread quickly, like a wave rolling across human space. In the floating cities of Venus, workers took breaks from their peaceful jobs to share jokes about scary space lizards who thought humans were pushovers. On the agricultural worlds of the Outer Rim, farmers gathered in community centers to laugh about aliens who clearly had not done their homework. Children drew pictures of frightened monsters running away from smiling humans. Comedy shows across the human worlds added new material about space bullies who had picked the wrong species to threaten. Social media filled with memes showing confused aliens, wondering why the humans were not properly terrified. A general atmosphere was one of amusement rather than alarm. Most humans seemed to view the Krillian ultimatum as the galaxy's greatest case of mistaken identity. General Thomas Kane found himself suddenly important for the first time in decades. As curator of the Human Military Archives, Thomas was responsible for maintaining the historical records of humanity's warrior past. Most of his career had been spent giving tours to students and helping historians research ancient battles. His archives were treated like a museum, full of interesting artifacts from a more primitive time when humans solved problems with violence instead of wisdom. But now panicked officials were demanding information about humanity's actual military capabilities. What ships did they have? What weapons? What defenses? Thomas's initial answers were not encouraging. Humanity's current fleet consisted of exploration vessels, cargo haulers, and passenger transports. Their weapons were mostly tools for asteroid mining or debris clearing. Their defenses were designed to protect against space junk and solar radiation, not alien invasion. However, there was something in Thomas's weathered eyes that suggested he knew more than he was initially revealing. As the keeper of military history, he had access to archives that went deeper than most people realized. He had spent decades studying not just the wars that humanity had fought, but the preparations they had made and the technologies they had developed. Deep in the classified sections of his archives were records of projects and capabilities that most humans had forgotten existed. Captain Sophia Rivera was commanding the exploration vessel New Dawn when she received the strangest orders of her career. Sophia had spent 15 years mapping distant star systems and searching for habitable worlds. Her ship was designed for long-range exploration, equipped with advanced sensors and scientific equipment. The New Dawn was built for discovery, not destruction, but the orders that came through secure channels suggested that was about to change. Asterisk. The transmission contained activation codes that Sophia had never seen before, followed by coordinates to a location in the asteroid belt that was not on any official star charts. The orders were signed by authorities she did not recognize, using security clearances that seemed to exceed anything in the current human government. Sophia was instructed to proceed immediately to the coordinates and await further instructions from personnel, who would identify themselves with additional codes. As the New Dawn changed course toward the mysterious coordinates, Sophia felt a strange mixture of excitement and unease. The orders suggested that humanity possessed capabilities that had been hidden from the general population. The question was whether those capabilities would be enough to deal with whatever the Krillian Empire might send against them. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's 1,000 years of peace had not been spent forgetting how to fight, but rather preparing for the day when someone would be foolish enough to threaten their peaceful existence. Deep beneath the surface of Luna, in facilities that had been sealed for centuries, automated systems began to wake up. Ancient computers that had been running on minimal power for 1,000 years suddenly came to full activation. Manufacturing. Systems that had been designed to produce the tools of war started their long dormant assembly lines. Weapons that had been stored in perfect stasis began their activation sequences. Across human space, similar awakenings were taking place. On asteroid mining stations, workers discovered that their equipment had hidden military applications. On research stations, scientists found that their laboratories contained technologies that had been disguised as peaceful instruments. On colony worlds, farmers realized that their communities had been built according to defensive patterns that would become obvious only when needed. The Krillian Empire had made their ultimatum, expecting to face a species of peaceful gardeners and artists. They were about to discover that humanity had never stopped being warriors. They had simply chosen to be gardeners instead, tending their civilization like a beautiful garden that they would defend with every resource at their disposal. The laughter that had echoed across human space was about to become the most terrifying sound the galaxy had ever heard, because it was the laughter of warriors who had been waiting patiently for someone to give them a reason to remember what they truly were. The galaxy's greatest mistake, the Krillian war fleet, emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system like a storm of dark metal and crackling energy. Fleet Commander Zethkar stood on the bridge of his flagship Dominator and felt the familiar thrill of impending conquest. He had destroyed 12 civilizations in his long career, each following the same predictable pattern. First came the ultimatum, then desperate pleas for mercy, then the quick annihilation of whatever pathetic defenses the primitives could manage. After that came submission and slavery for any survivors lucky enough to be kept alive. Zethkar expected the humans to follow this established pattern. His intelligence reports suggested that humanity was a peaceful species that had spread across many worlds, but had done so slowly, like cautious farmers rather than bold conquerors. Their ships were designed for trade and exploration, not warfare. Their governments seemed more concerned with art festivals and environmental protection than military preparedness. They appeared to be exactly the sort of soft, decadent civilization that the Krillian Empire specialized in crushing. But as the Krillian fleet advanced past the orbit of Pluto, Zethkar's sensors detected something that made his scaled skin crawl with unease. There was already a fleet waiting for them, not hiding behind planets or moons like frightened prey, but arranged in perfect battle formation in the open space near Jupiter. The human ships hung in the darkness like predators that had been patiently waiting for their quarry to arrive. Admiral Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution and watched the alien fleet approach on her tactical displays. Sarah had been pulled from her quiet job as a navigation instructor just 5 days earlier and appointed Supreme Commander of Human Defense Forces, a position that had not existed for centuries. But as she studied the enemy formation, Sarah felt something that surprised her. She was not afraid or nervous or uncertain. She felt calm and ready, as if this moment was something she had been unconsciously preparing for her entire life. The Retribution was nothing like the peaceful vessels that most humans were familiar with. It had been constructed in the hidden shipyards of the outer system during the final years of the last Great War, then sealed away when peace finally came. Its hull was dark and angular, designed to absorb sensor scans and deflect energy weapons. Its systems were older than most human colonies, but they had been maintained and upgraded by automated processes that never forgot their purpose. Sarah opened a communication channel to the approaching Krillian fleet, her voice carrying across the void with calm authority. "This is Admiral Mitchell of the Human Defense Force. You have entered our system without permission and threatened our people. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully. I suggest you take it." The response from Fleet Commander Zethkar was exactly what Sarah had expected. First came harsh laughter, followed by insults about primitive humans who dared to threaten the mighty Krillian Empire. Then came threats about what would happen to human worlds once the conquest was complete. Finally came the attack order, delivered with the confidence of someone who had never met an enemy he could not crush. The Krillian ships opened fire with plasma cannons that could melt through planetary crust and quantum torpedoes that could crack asteroids in half. The weapons represented the peak of Krillian military technology, refined through centuries of conquest and perfected on the bodies of defeated enemies. The energy discharge lit up space between the two fleets like an artificial aurora, beautiful and deadly. But when the alien weapons struck the human ships, something impossible happened. Energy shields that should not have existed absorbed the plasma blasts and redirected them harmlessly into space. Quantum torpedoes that should have vaporized entire vessels simply vanished, caught and neutralized by defensive systems that the Krillians had never encountered before. The human fleet sat motionless in the face of the most powerful weapons in known space, completely unharmed. Captain David Park piloted the stealth destroyer Phantom through the alien formation like a shark moving through a school of fish. David had spent his career training on historical combat simulators, studying battles that had been fought centuries before his birth, learning tactics from wars that most people considered ancient history. But now, as he activated weapon systems that had been dormant for 1,000 years, David discovered that all his theoretical knowledge was about to become devastatingly real. The Phantom fired its railguns at a Krillian battlecruiser, and David watched projectiles accelerate to significant fractions of light speed before punching through the alien hull like paper. The enemy ship simply disintegrated, its advanced armor and sophisticated defenses useless against weapons that struck with the kinetic force of small meteors. Other human ships opened fire simultaneously, and the space around Jupiter blazed with particle beams, railgun rounds, and energy weapons that had not been seen in the galaxy for centuries. But the real shock for Fleet Commander Zethkar came when he realized that the humans were not just fighting back effectively. They were fighting with perfect knowledge of Krillian tactics and technology. Every weapon the aliens fired was countered by exactly the right defense. Every formation they attempted was met by the perfect counter formation. Every strategy they tried was anticipated and defeated before it could develop. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez sat in the Strategic Command Center deep beneath Geneva, surrounded by displays showing the battle in real time. Lisa had spent her career studying alien military doctrine, not because she expected humans to fight aliens, but because she found their strategies intellectually fascinating. She had written academic papers about Krillian battle tactics and published analyses of their technological capabilities. She knew their fleet compositions and supply requirements and standard operating procedures better than most Krillian officers. Now Lisa was using all that theoretical knowledge to coordinate humanity's defense, sending tactical updates to fleet commanders and suggesting counter-strategies for enemy maneuvers. It was like playing a complex strategy game that she had been studying for decades, except now the pieces were real ships and the stakes were the survival of human civilization. Every move the Krillians made had been predicted and prepared for. Every weakness in their doctrine had been catalogued and was now being ruthlessly exploited. As the first wave of Krillian ships fell to human weapons, a realization began to dawn on the surviving alien commanders. The peaceful humans had not spent their 1,000 years of peace becoming soft or forgetting how to fight. They had spent that time studying every conflict in galactic history, analyzing every military technology, and preparing for exactly this moment. They had built weapons and defenses that surpassed anything currently in use by galactic powers, and they had hidden those capabilities so well that no one suspected their existence. Psychological impact on the Krillian forces was devastating. These were warriors who had built their entire culture around the concept of overwhelming superiority. They had never faced an enemy that could match their technology, let alone surpass it. They had certainly never encountered opponents who seemed to know their tactics better than they did themselves. The confident predators who had emerged from hyperspace were rapidly becoming confused, and demoralized prey. Ambassador Kelthon was monitoring the battle from the Krillian diplomatic vessel when he began to understand the magnitude of his empire's mistake. Kelthon had been sent to oversee the expected human surrender and establish the terms of their subjugation. Instead, he was watching the systematic destruction of what had been considered one of the most powerful fleets in Krillian space. The humans were not just winning the battle, they were demonstrating a level of military sophistication that suggested the Krillian Empire had seriously underestimated this species. But the humans were not finished with their demonstration. As the surviving Krillian ships attempted to retreat, they discovered that human vessels had somehow positioned themselves to cut off every escape route. Ships that should have been engaged in the main battle had appeared throughout the system, moving with stealth technology that made them virtually invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. The retreat became a rout, and the rout became a massacre. The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Trade vessels and communication relays carried the impossible story to every inhabited world. The peaceful humans had not just survived the Krillian attack, they had annihilated it completely. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds had been reduced to floating debris in a matter of hours. The empire that had terrorized half the galaxy had been stopped cold by a species that most aliens considered harmless gardeners. But the real message was just beginning to spread. The humans had not won through luck or desperation. They had won through careful preparation, superior technology, and tactical brilliance that suggested they had been planning for galactic warfare long before anyone suspected their capabilities. The galaxy was beginning to realize that humanity had never been the peaceful, naive species they appeared to be. They were predators who had chosen to be gardeners, warriors who had decided to build instead of destroy. As the last Krillian ship exploded in the cold vacuum of space, Admiral Sarah Mitchell opened a communication channel that reached every corner of the galaxy. Her words were calm and measured, but they carried a weight that made even the most powerful alien civilizations feel a chill of recognition. To all species monitoring this transmission, Sarah said, her voice carrying across light years of space, humanity has lived in peace for 1,000 years, not because we forgot how to wage war, but because we chose to build instead of destroy. That choice was a gift to the galaxy, and it has now been revoked. Any species that threatens human worlds or human lives will discover what we are truly capable of when we stop being gardeners and remember that we are still warriors underneath. The message was received by every major power in the galaxy, and its implications were clear. The peaceful humans had revealed themselves to be the most dangerous military force in known space. They had technology that surpassed anything currently deployed by galactic civilizations. They had strategies and tactics that could counter any known military doctrine. Most importantly, they had demonstrated the patience to spend 1,000 years preparing for a war they hoped would never come. The galaxy would never be the same. The balance of power had shifted permanently, and every alien civilization would now have to reconsider their relationship with the species they had dismissed as harmless explorers and traders. Humanity had become the apex predator of galactic civilization, and they had done it while maintaining the facade of peaceful gardeners right up until the moment Someone forced them to reveal their true nature. The laughter that had echoed across human space when the Krillian ultimatum first arrived now seemed prophetic rather than naive. Humans had laughed because they knew something the aliens did not. They knew that underneath their peaceful civilization lay the sleeping heart of the most dangerous warrior species the galaxy had ever produced. The Krillians had awakened that sleeping giant, and the consequences would reshape the political landscape of the entire galaxy. In the aftermath of the battle, as human ships moved to secure the wreckage and rescue any surviving Krillian personnel, one thing became clear too. Every observer, humanity's 1,000 years of peace had not been a sign of weakness or pacifism. It had been the ultimate expression of strength, the ability to choose restraint when you possessed the power to dominate. That choice had now been taken away, and the galaxy would spend the next 1,000 years learning to live with the consequences of forcing humanity to remember what they had always been underneath their peaceful exterior. Asterisk.